Hey kids, this is Ivan. How you doing? If you're a Gen X like me, congratulations. This video is going to contain some really important things to consider and think about when you're trying to figure out what do I do with the rest of my life. And if you're not a Gen X, well, it's okay. It's not your fault. But I believe that the video is still going to contain some things that are relevant to you, so keep watching. Anyhow, as Gen X, we make up just under 20% of the population. We're somewhere between 46 and 60 years old, so we're in our prime earning potential, and all that kind of stuff. We're not wet behind the ears. We've lived a lot of life. We bring a lot of experience to the table. However, there's a lot of life still ahead of us, and we're still relevant, or at least we're trying to be relevant in these uncertain times. Now, we kind of grew up in a very interesting time. The 60s were just ending with all that was happening then. We were little kids during the 70s and with all the stuff that happened then. And during the 80s, well, there was all this money and MTV, and we bore witness to all that. And that shaped us in a lot of ways. However, we got the same message that our parents got and their parents got, which was like, work hard, be obedient, show up, don't rock the boat, be productive, and you're going to be rewarded. A couple things happened, in my estimation, as a result of that. The first thing is that the world of our parents, who were mostly of the silent generation, and of the people in between, the baby boomers, that advice seemed to work better. The rewards that they got were more consistent. Things changed. The economy has changed. The way that companies work have changed. Actually, we bore witness in our lifetime to an incredible amount of change. If you just think of all the electronics and type, stuff, and the joke that, we went from 8 tracks to records to cassettes to CDs to now MP3s, and we've had to buy our music collection over and over and over again. And now we got the streaming services. And just think of what happened with phones or computers and all that kind of stuff. But the world of everything else changed dramatically around us. We grew up during the tail end of the Cold War, and look what happened. We've seen it all. So there's quite a few things have happened. But part of what happened was that formula that worked for our parents and for that generation between didn't work for us as well. And we're probably the first generation where we're not living as well as our parents did, or as the baby boomers either. Never mind the generations that came after us. So we're not living as well. But a different thing happened. And that is that in many cases, we focused on being productive. We focused on being obedient. We focused on doing what we thought we were supposed to do. We raised families. We built careers. We, chased after the American dream, or whatever country you live in. Very often, we didn't do anything wrong. We did exactly what we were taught to do. However, in doing that, very often what we did is we put things aside. I can speak from experience here. There was this period of time where I put down role-playing games, which I dearly love. I stopped doing a bunch of the hobbies I really like to do. I started living more for my partner than I did for myself, which is a different story. I stopped playing in bands for a good long time. I did some playing here and there, but not as much as I'm doing now, and not as much as I was doing before. In a lot of these cases, I was like, I'm going to do it later. I'm just going to put this down for a little while. Life is busy right now, and I'm going to pick it back up. Or it's more important to be that really reliable, ultra-reliable worker. I'll never forget, I worked for this organization where there was a lot of overtime to be had, but you had to be the person that said yes as soon as the call came in. And even if it meant you put aside whatever you were doing, playing with your kids or whatever happened to be, and said, yeah, I'll be there in half an hour. And you got in your car and you went. And I used to tell other guys, this is what you need to do in order to be the go-to person. And yes, did we make more money that way? But it was this thing where we were doing it just for that reputation and to build what? All these other experiences we were putting to the side. And I'll do that later because in whatever venture you might be in, whatever company, whatever job you might be in, you start doing that, putting more and more, only to find out that you can be so easily replaced, and that you spent so much time building somebody else's dream, building somebody else's empire, doing, there was always a goal you were working for, but you generally weren't the one that decided what that goal was. I'll talk about this in another video, more relevant to role-playing games, which is pretty interesting. But let me keep it to Gen X. And so we put all these things down. And all of a sudden we find ourselves in this position where we say, hey, I've been living life for somebody else. I've been making all these sacrifices for somebody else. And we spent decades being productive, but the productivity oftentimes was pointed in the wrong direction. It wasn't pointed in the direction of like what we wanted out of life. There were so many things that I didn't do, so many travel plans I put off. What about the book you were going to write, or the book I was going to write, or the role-playing game I was going to write? What about learning my instrument in a fashion that made me more of a virtuoso? What about the bands that I wanted to be in? What about the things I wanted to do? And the point is now is that there's still a lot of life ahead. We can still change course. We can shift our perspective on what's important and what that means for you, and what change that brings in your life. That's you. It could be you're like, screw this, I'm not working for somebody else anymore. I'm going to open up my own business, whatever the heck it is, and do something that way, where at least I'm working for me and not for somebody else. It could be that, like, I put these things down too much. I am going to write that book. I'm going to go learn that instrument. I'm going to go start playing out again more. I'm going to travel to these places I wanted to travel to. It doesn't mean we have to completely abandon all responsibilities or just quit your job tomorrow and do all that crazy stuff. Although, if you make a plan to do it, nothing wrong with that either. But, life is short. This is the only one we get. And so these two things, the idea that, like, we're not going to get the rewards that we were promised. We're just not. The life that, worked, or the formula that worked for our parents, for the baby boomers, it's not working for us. Just look around. It's not working, except for a few people, and they're generally the ones on top whose dreams that we're working for. That's, so that formula's not working. Also, in that pursuit, in doing what we were told, we put down so much of what makes us, us. And if we don't pick that up, if we don't claim that part of ourselves back and do what we want to do, be the person that we were meant to be, or that we dreamed of being, whatever that means to you, that's tragic. We don't need to spend the rest of our lives putting all of our productivity and all of our energy into society or into keeping the systems running, because we spent all this time being dependable. Most of us did. We don't need, it doesn't mean we don't put any effort in there, but we don't need to put all of our effort there. We don't need to work and be productive and be obedient to serve something else. We're important too. Maybe we weren't taught that, but I'm telling you, we're just as important. And those dreams, those goals, those things we wanted to do, those passions, they're important. Go live that life. Go live your life. Go live the life that you want, not the life you've been told to live.